How's it going, everybody? Dean here once again for my progress, and today we're going to be asking that age-old question: do I have to be smart to do a PhD? Before we jump into the content, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're getting some benefit from these videos, and in the comment section down below, let me know some of your fears and doubts about starting a PhD, and hopefully we can address those in some upcoming videos. So before we start, the answer is no. You don't have to be an absolute genius to undertake a PhD. This is a common misconception, and it's almost because people put academics on pedestals or shove them and their knowledge in ivory towers. You don't have to be the best performing person in your cohort. You don't have to be the smartest person in the world to undertake a PhD. But here are some things that you do need to consider and that you do need to be or have in order to undertake a PhD. The first is that you do need to be well read within the area. The reason being is that you need this knowledge to generate an idea or a concept around what you want your PhD to be. Now, I'm talking from a perspective of individuals who are either self-funded or they're looking to put their ideas into the hat of an institution. Because when you do go down that route, you will be expected to put together a small portfolio of research that includes maybe ideas for 3 or 4 potential research studies that are aimed and directed to solving one coherent problem at the end of your PhD. Now, you might be looking to solve that problem from coming at it from 3 or 4 different angles, or you might be telling a story whereby one of your research studies leads on to the next, which leads on to the next, which leads on to the next. But regardless of this, you will have to come up with an idea of your own, and you will have to defend that idea from potential reviewers. Of course, there are other PhD programs which say that we want to research this. How would you, as an academic or an early career researcher, put together some research studies which will hopefully find the answer to this underpinning question? But regardless of which direction you take, you do need to have read well enough within that area to fully acknowledge some of the core concepts, understand the theory which underpins some of these decisions, and also be able to articulate how you as a researcher will start to answer some of those questions. Second, and probably one of the most important elements, you have to be somebody who has a passion for this research area. Oftentimes I see students who are looking for any PhD. I would be concerned about taking those individuals on as a student, because the PhD process is hard work. It needs a lot of dedication. We're going to come on to that in a second. But most of all, it's going to be time consuming, and it's going to take you 3 to 4 years full-time, or maybe up to 8 years if you're a part-time student. And because of that, you can't be losing too much faith in that idea or that topic area. Because if you do, you're going to hate the PhD process. You're going to become unmotivated. And as such, it's going to take you such a long time to really get to the end of your PhD program. And when you get there, you're just going to hate the subject matter. As such, the best PhDs are from students who have a real passion for that particular area. You might have historical reference to it. You might be working in and around that area. It might be an area that you've studied for 3 or 4 years before, and as such, now you want to make your own name in that particular research area. Those make the best PhD students. And carrying on with that thread, it does take dedication. It does take hard work. Now, I know that you watching this video are not naive enough to think that it's going to be an easy process, but you will be juggling lots of competing interests and playing parts. You might be doing your PhD, you might be doing some associate lecturing at the side, you might be working a part-time job. And in the mix of that, you might be juggling childcare commitments, wider caring commitments, family commitments, being with your partner, having time away. And so it is going to be very time intensive, it's going to be research intensive, and it's going to be quite a stressful experience. Now, the things that we talk about in iProgress aren't designed to mask this and say that it's not a difficult transition. But what we do teach are effective workflows, effective ways of working, being dedicated as soon as you walk through the door, so as you're not putting work off to the evenings or the weekends, so it impacts your family time. But just know that it will be very intensive. And that can give the perception of it being difficult, which then gives the perception that we need to be smart in order to overcome the difficulty. But you perhaps don't need to be smart in terms of knowledge. You need to be smart in terms of how to work effectively. So just make sure you're aware of this, but also the wider financial commitments that you will be making when undertaking a PhD program, especially if you're a self-funded student. You also need to be in the right part of your life in order to do this. Now, we've just spoken about the financial commitment. So how are you going to fund that PhD? Are you able to juggle a part-time job at the side of that PhD? Do you have wider family that you need to be looking after? Or do you have commitments which will take you away from that program for a certain amount of time each week or each month? Are you stable enough in order to give yourself the best opportunity and the best chance to succeed in this program right here, right now? And I think that academics who are taking on new PhD students, their job is to do due diligence to make sure that that student is ready to undertake a PhD. So maybe take a little bit of a step back and reflect on whether the PhD is the most suitable program for you right now. And finally, it's always useful for students to ask, instead of am I smart enough, what do I need this PhD for? Am I doing it for myself to get another degree to show that I can do this? Am I getting this PhD in order to get into this particular industry or for this particular job? So for example, you might want to be a lecturer in a particular subject area. Or do you think you need a PhD to get into a particular subject area or particular job when you might not actually need it? Now, this is really an interesting discussion that you should have with people who are already doing that job in a particular industry or a particular sector, because I think that all too commonly students are getting degrees or getting certificates that don't actually vastly contribute into a particular role. And so just make sure that before you undertake that PhD, that you're doing it for the right reasons. You have a rough or fair goal in mind that you want to use that PhD for, because if not, that time, that resource, that financial commitments might be better off directed to a different avenue. So to summarize, do you have to be the smartest person in the world to do a PhD? No. Do you have to manage your resources, manage your time, be aware of what you're going to be undertaking, have a passion and a drive, be able to sustain yourself for 3 or 4 years and be able to come up with ideas to think ahead and put some really novel information forward? Then yes. But remember, just because you've picked up a couple of bad grades throughout your undergraduate and master's degrees does not mean that you will not be an ideal PhD candidate. So I hope you find this video useful. If you have, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel and share it with your friends. And in the comments down below, let me know if there's anything that I haven't thought of in this video. Have you ever had any self-doubts about you undertaking a PhD? And how did you overcome them if you have? I've been Dean for My Progress, and I will catch you all in the next video.